Welcome to FPL Differential XI, a series where we pick a team of 11 lowly owned players who we predict to score the most points for the upcoming game week, to assist you in gaining substantial rank over other fantasy managers. There's just 3 rules. The squad must be worth no more than 82.5 million, each player must be owned by a maximum of 10% of total players in the game, and we're only allowed to pick a maximum of 3 players from a single team. A silhouette of each player we've selected is already on the pitch, so feel free to play along by seeing how many of the 11 you can correctly guess. First up in goal, I've gone for Emi Martinez for Aston Villa's home match against Nottingham Forest. Although Forest have become a difficult team to beat this season, they've not won in the league since Gameweek 22, which was a 1-0 win over Leeds. On top of that, they've struggled to score goals away from home. Villa have now kept 4 clean sheets in their last 5 Premier League games, and Martinez picked up 11 FPL points in what was an impressive away performance against Chelsea last weekend. There's a few teams with favourable fixtures this week, but I think Martinez is the most likely keeper to keep a clean sheet. One of the standout defenders in FPL over the last month or so has to be Tyrone Mings, and he joins the team for his home match versus Forest. In his last 5 game weeks, Mings has returned 7, 8, 2, 12 and 8 points respectively, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up at least 6 points this weekend. When looking at away form, Nottingham Forest sit rock bottom of the table with just 1 win in 13 games, and somehow they've only managed to score 4 goals across those 13 matches, which bodes well for my double up in the Villa defence. There's a few options to choose from within their back line, but Mings probably has the highest goal threat. Nathan Ake joins the team for his away match against Southampton. Last week I thought Man City were unlucky to concede against Liverpool in what was a totally dominant 4-1 win. Ake played his part, and although it's difficult to predict which back 4 Pep will start with week to week, there only seems to be 2 options for him at left back, Ake and Laporte. Although there's a chance Ake misses out completely, the positive in owning him is that he'd likely remain on the bench for the full 90. For me, Southampton have been one of the poorest performers so far this season, and I can't see anything other than a City win in this one. Next up, I've decided on Timothy Castagne for Leicester's home match against Bournemouth. Although this will be a close game, I personally think Leicester will be favourites to get a result, especially if a new manager comes in before the deadline. Last week the Foxes had what you'd have to say was a deserved defeat away to Palace. However, they did perform much better in the second half, and interestingly at the start of the half, Castagne was moved up to right wing, with Ricardo Pereira filling in at right back. Not long into the restart, the 2 players combined to put Leicester ahead, and I assume they'll continue to be involved in the Foxes' attack moving forwards. Finally in the back 4, I've gone for Anthony Robinson for Fulham's home game versus West Ham. Although the Hammers managed to get a result last week against Southampton, they have been incredibly poor away from home so far this season, having only picked up 1 win in 13 matches and scoring just 7 goals in that time. Fulham have been inconsistent of late, but with home advantage, I think they've got a good chance of keeping a clean sheet this week. The reason why I've opted for Robinson over Fulham's other defensive assets is because he makes those overlapping runs forward, so there's always an outside chance of an assist from a cross. I'm kicking off the midfield with another Fulham asset, and it's Manor Solomon against West Ham. Although Solomon blanked in his last 2 matches, he did score in 4 consecutive matches prior to that, and he always looks dangerous when he cuts inside from the left wing. West Ham have conceded 20 goals away from home this season, and having scored only 7, they seem to be a team that sits in deep and absorbs a lot of pressure. I think this game plan will play into the hands of a team like Fulham, as they'll be able to deliver multiple crosses into the box, and players like Solomon will have multiple chances of getting at the back line. Riyad Mahrez has just become the top assisting African player in Premier League history, and with the way City are playing, he's definitely going to pick up more assists in the remainder of the season. With Phil Foden recovering from an abdominal surgery, Mahrez looks likely to get more minutes on the right side of the front 3, and we know how capable he is of racking up big FPL scores playing that role. With limited minutes, he's already returned 5 goals and 7 assists in the Premier League this season, and this week's fixture against Southampton could be the perfect opportunity for him to add to that record. He might also be on penalties if Haaland remains sidelined. Having scored a hat-trick at Anfield earlier in the season for Brighton, Leandro Trossard has to join the differential 11 this week for Arsenal's encounter with Liverpool. Arsenal are currently on their longest winning run under Mikel Arteta, with 7 wins in a row in the Premier League. Trossard has definitely played his part in that success, filling in as both a striker and left winger. He's now returned 7 assists in his last 6 matches, and looks to be a real threat in the Gunners' forward line. Arteta definitely has a decision to make on who to start this week, but I think Trossard will be favoured to target and expose Liverpool's high defensive line. I've decided on an interesting pick to join the midfield this week, and it's Eberechi Eze, Crystal Palace's away trip to Leeds. Palace looked completely dominant against Leicester last week under Roy Hodgson, especially in the first half, and Eze was constantly finding himself in advanced positions in the final third on the pitch. To add to that, he took the free kick that ricocheted off the bar and onto Iverson for Palace's first goal, and with his set pieces, I think he could return something this weekend against Leeds. Leeds have conceded 48 goals this season, and I expect Palace to get plenty of goal-scoring chances coming into this one. I'm recording this prior to Leicester's second game in their double game week against Villa, but so far it's been a disappointing week for Harvey Barnes, who offered practically no threat in the match against Palace. Having said that, he has been praised recently for his impressive performances, and Bournemouth have conceded 55 goals this season, which is 5 more than any team in the division, with teams like West Ham, Bournemouth and Forest all picking up results lately. The Foxes now find themselves in 19th in the table, so my hope is that under a new manager they'll start to play with more intensity and really get at their opposition. Julian Alvarez has returned in 5 Premier League matches that he started in the Premier League this season, and only blanked in 2. You'd have to say that when he gets minutes, he's a fantastic option for our fantasy teams, and also a great differential at just over 2% selected amongst managers. I think the likelihood is that we see more of Haaland in City's team training this week, but I'm not sure that Pep will risk him for a start, especially as they're able to perform so well without him, and Champions League is just around the corner. Although he might not be a viable option for the long term, Alvarez has to be worth a punt this week against a struggling Southampton side. Just a quick reminder to let you know that this could be your channel appearing on the series. If you want to be in with a chance of winning a shout out on the channel, correctly predict the points total of this week's differential 11. Info will be down below in the pinned comment. Thanks for joining us on this week's video. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to avoid missing the next one, and I wish you all massive green arrows for the upcoming game week.